want to be here for the next hour, Father, totally dependent on you, totally worshiping you, Father. Father, we just ask right now that as Keith brings the message, Father, that you would give him those words that our hearts are ready to hear, Father, and open up our hearts to receive them. We just love you and praise you this morning, Father. In your name we pray. Amen. Good morning.
Good morning.
A few announcements this morning. We are not having choir practice tonight for anybody that might want to come and join us anytime you're ready. But we are going to start having choir practice on Wednesday nights at 6:30. Just kind of something we were discussing back there, and it seems to work better for us. So we're going to start doing that 6:30 on Wednesday nights. So no choir practice tonight, 6:30 on Wednesday. Vacation Bible School starts July. I'll make another announcement in a minute, but next Sunday, I'd like to have just a short 10-minute meeting with all those who will be working on Vacation Bible School, because it's really fast approaching. I think we're only 2 Sundays away, Vacation Bible School, so we really need to be able to just sit for just a few minutes and get everything in order. That's from July 7th through the 10th. Homecoming starts, will be on July 21st, and then revival on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Excited to have Keith speaking, and we're excited that he's here today. We miss Amy, but she had some other things that needed to get done, so she couldn't make it this morning, but we're happy Keith is here again this morning. Those messages the last few Sundays have just been awesome. Jerry and I have talked about them, and definitely something our hearts needed to hear. We appreciate it, Keith. Again, our revival is going to be Monday through Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday, David Glenn will be here. Said before, he toured with Third Day. They're all off tour now. He's doing some church singings. I think he's in Douglasville this coming Friday. So if you want to have a chance to hear him, you can look him up on his website and see where he's going to be. But I think he's going to be, I think it's Douglasville this Friday. After church this morning, Daryl has asked that the pulpit committee meet with him for a very short time in the fellowship hall.
No, counting office.
Do what?
Counting office.
In that office. So not that way. Go that way. Pulpit committee. I'll put a little sign up here. Pulpit committee that way. So right after church, he promises it won't be but just a few minutes. So we know Daryl. Sorry. So are there any other announcements we need to make this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yep. Today is James' birthday.
Happy birthday, Jane.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear James. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I'm 104.
What?
I said thank you. I'm 104.
You're 104? Well, I heard you were 39. Isn't that what it says? 49, I'm sorry.
104 is the way I feel.
Devon's is tomorrow, so
Here.
y'all gotta get this straight. I don't know this stuff. Derek, you got a birthday tomorrow? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Derek. Happy birthday to you. And for everybody else who's got a birthday. So I'm glad we don't have 1,000 members here. We can sing that all day, right? So we hope y'all have a great day. So enjoy your birthday. So they only come once a year, you know that? So just okay, so moving right on. Any other announcements? All right, we're going to go ahead and go into our prayer request. We want to lift Cheryl up. I could go into a lot of detail about what was said in Sunday school about Cheryl, but we need to pray for her. She can't drive right now, so she can't come to church. And I don't know about you guys, but when I miss church, I can't get through the week. So we really just need to lift up Cheryl. If you need to know what's going on, you can talk to Gladys. She'll be happy to fill you in, but she really needs our prayer. So not to be able to come to church maybe for a few weeks, maybe even a few months is going to be tough. So we're going to pray for her. Linnell Wood, we need to pray for her. Jerry Bishop and his family, we need to pray for them. Who else? Covered everybody. So, Darryl, will you lead us in prayer this morning?
Lord, as we come to you this morning, we just ask that you lift up the ones that we have mentioned on our prayer list, Lord. The ones that we have mentioned, those and their families, Lord, as you know their needs. Their individual needs, Lord. And you know what they need, Lord, and we just ask you to be especially with them, to lay your healing hand upon them, Lord, and help the families. Lord, we do want to ask a special prayer for Jerry's family, Lord, as they are still seeking it from your will, Lord, to hear from you something exact whereabouts, Lord. We just ask this morning, Lord, that you a special prayer for that, Lord, for that family. That something come to light, Lord, for them, that they'll get some kind of answer and some sort of relief for that, Lord. As we go through our day of life, Lord, we just ask that you be with us and lead us and guide us, continue to bless us, Lord. We ask that you just bless us and keep us in our your message, that it be love and enlightenment in all our hearts, Lord. In Jesus' name.
Let's all stand and sing this morning. Take time to be holy, speak open thy Lord. Abide in always, and read of his word. Make friends of God's children, help those who are weak, forgetting in nothing his blessing to see. Take time to be holy, let him be thy guide, and run not before him, whatever betide. Endure in sorrow, still follow thy Lord, and looking to Jesus, still trust in his word. Take time to be holy, be calm in thy soul. Each thought and each morning, be in his control. Thus led by his Spirit to fountains of love. Thus the shall be written for servants above. We're going to continue right along with our offertory song. In my heart there rings a melody. Smile just a little bit while we're singing if there's a melody in your heart this morning, okay? Yeah. choir comes down, we'll have a time of fellowship.
Let me just say it's good to see you today. Good to be with you again today.
Dave.
I don't have a chair here.
Selective hearing network. There you go. And it's better when it's fried chicken and fellowship together. All right, it's good to see y'all here this morning. Pray you've had a good week. Anybody had a good week this week? Anybody have a tough week this week? Yeah, got a few of those hands too. Some of you had a good week and a tough week. Boy. Yeah, sometimes the tough weeks can be good weeks. You know, it all depends on perspective a lot of times. It's like the man that was falling from a 12-story building, and as he went by, somebody heard him say, "Well, so far so good." It's almost like sometimes we're in that free fall. We think I'm doing okay now, but we could turn any minute. But I'm glad you had a hopefully good week. Anybody here this morning here by accident? Did any of you go to the wrong place? You meant to be at the Methodist Church or the Presbyterian Church or the church in Atlanta, and you just accidentally got here? Now, most of you planned to be here today, didn't you? You made plans. You put everything else aside, and you hopefully got up in time to give yourself time to take a shower and take a bath and get ready to come. Maybe someone took a bath last night in preparation, but you made plans to be here, didn't you? You wouldn't be here if you hadn't planned to be here, most likely, right? I don't think anybody's here accidentally today. You made plans and you went about to make those plans by putting together a scheme that would help you be here on time in your place and dressed accordingly and pleasant enough that all the people around you wouldn't mind sitting with you in your pew. So I want to share with you a little bit today about plans and schemes, because that's important. And you say, well, plans and schemes aren't they the same thing? Well, sort of. A plan it's where you set a goal or a place you want to be, and you think, what do I have to do to get there? I remember when I was 16 years old, God spoke to me and called me into the ministry to preach, and I didn't know what that meant at that time. I just surrendered to God's call. I'd been saved at age 11 and really didn't understand a lot. I just knew, God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, and preached my first sermon when I was 16 years old. But I had no idea where I was going to go with that. I went to college and got a degree in education and also religious studies, and sought God's will and direction and thought, Lord, what is it you want me to do with this? What will I do with my life and my time? And it was all a mystery then. Now that I'm 63 years old, I can look back and see how God worked and orchestrated a lot of things in my life, because He had a plan for me. And I know many of you were here when the church went through that study, Experiencing God. You remember that? Some of you went through there. We learned that God is at work. Listen, God's at work in our community and around us, whether we work with Him or not. God is working here in this church. God's working in this community. God's working all around us. God's working in this nation. Sometimes we look at our government and wonder how in the world He can work with those folks, but He is at work. I'm telling you, He's at work around this world. You realize as we worship here in this country, there are people in China worshiping, there are people in South America worshiping, they're worshiping the same God we do. And if you ever get a chance to worship in another country, I tell you, it is a wonderful experience. When I've worshiped in other places, some places didn't even know the language they were speaking. But I recognized a lot of the tunes were the same tunes to the hymns that we sing. And so they're always singing in English, and my words didn't always match their words, and sometimes I'd be saying a word when they had a pause. But it was still worship. And I realized, we love the same God. We're the same spiritual brother and sister. And it's wonderful when you do that. But we all have plans and schemes, don't we? We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have some plans. And the scheme is like a plan. The scheme is really the steps you take to get there. You got to have some kind of scheme in mind. And sometimes our schemes are good, and sometimes our schemes are not so good. We get an idea, or God plants something of His plan in our mind, and we think, well, God, I'd really like to do that. But just like that hymn said a little while ago, we have to be careful we don't get ahead of God's plan, or we don't get out of God's plan. It's so easy to do. As we look back over our lives, think about the plans you have had. I bet some of you had plans. Maybe some of you as a young boy were out with a baseball and a bat like I was, and you dreamed of one day when you'd be in the big stadium with those thousands of people cheering for you. And I just knew one day I'd be the person to hit that home run to win the ball game in the ninth inning and be an all-star and do all those things. Well, those were my plans. Unfortunately, those were not the plans God had for me. That plan I had didn't work out. It was not something that came to fruition. It was something I would have liked to have done. If you asked me if I'd like to be doing that, if I had liked to have done that, oh, absolutely. But that wasn't part of God's plan for me. Do I regret that I couldn't do that? No, not really. Because I've been allowed and blessed by God to live out His plan in my life. And as my plans more contoured toward His plan, the happier I became in my life, and the more joy and satisfaction. Do I miss the fact I never played in the Major League ballpark? Absolutely not. I probably would have flopped miserably if I had anyway. But I don't miss that. We all have plans and schemes, don't we? It's interesting sometimes. I watch little girls at play, and I don't see me, as I told you last week, remember men and women are vastly different. But, I've never seen a little boy out playing wedding. But I've seen little girls doing that. You know, and some girls early in life. And I didn't realize this, but a lot of young girls, they get these wedding magazines. You ever heard of those? I guess now they have internet sources they go to. I mean, some girls by the time they're 14 have their wedding planned out. They're thinking already, you know, how many bridesmaids I'm going to have and this kind of thing. They don't even know who their friends are going to be yet, but they've already got their, you know, we're going to have 7 bridesmaids and we're going to do it there. We're going to get married here. They've already got plans of that. Like I say, I don't ever remember one boy saying that, I just can't wait to get my wedding plans all in place and get the right wedding cake. But we all have plans and schemes, don't we? Robert Burns has always been one of my favorite poets. If you ever get a chance to read any of Burns' works, his poetry is just dynamic. It's very common, very ordinary. He's an Irish poet, lived centuries ago, but my favorite poem that he writes is To a Mouse. Are any of you familiar with that poem, To a Mouse? He wrote To a Mouse and To a Louse. To a Mouse is subtitled To a Mouse upon breaking up his nest while plowing the field. To a louse is actually singular for lice. And it's the subtitle of that is To a Louse sitting on a woman's bonnet at church on a Sunday morning. Now we're going to talk about To a Louse, but I want to talk about To a Mouse because it kind of plays into what I'm going to be sharing with you today about plans and schemes. Burns was out one day plowing in the field with his old plow and mule in front of him, and he's going along. He just stumbled across a mouse that had built a little nest there in this field that he was plowing in. And he watched the little mouse, and according to his brother said that while he was still holding the plow, he wrote this poem, To a Mouse. And he thought about what he had done to upset that mouse. And here he had worked, that little mouse had worked so hard to put this little nest together and was living under it. When he broke it up with a plow, the mouse went scurrying off in fear of what was going to happen, fear for his life. But he left everything that he had worked for behind. And here's how Burns pens his thoughts. He says, little, silky, cowering, timid beast. And usually when we think of rat in the field, we don't think of a little timid beast, do we? Oh, what a panic is in your breast. You need not start away so hasty with bickering prattle. I would be loath to run and chase you with murdering paddle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion which makes you startle at me, your poor earthborn companion and fellow mortal. I doubt not sometimes that you may steal. What then, poor beast, you must live. An odd ear in 24 sheaves is small request. I will get a blessing with what is left and never miss it. Your small house too in ruin. Its feeble walls the winds are scattering, and nothing now to build a new one of coarse green foliage, and bleak December's winds coming, both bitter and piercing. You saw the fields laid bare and empty, and weary winter coming fast, and cozy here beneath the blast you thought to dwell, till crash, the cruel plow passed out through your cell. That small heap of leaves and stubble has cost you many a weary nibble. Now that you are turned out for all your trouble, without house or holding to endure the winter's sleety dribble and hoarfrost cold. But mouse, you are not alone. Improving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men, bet you've heard that before, go often askew and leave us nothing but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, you are blessed compared with me. The present only touches you, but oh, I backwards cast my eye on prospects dreary, and forward, though I cannot see, I guess and fear. So in that poem, he sees what happens because he is bigger, stronger, has more power and dominion over that little mouse, and as he sees that mouse scurry, he realizes that even he is in a similar state. Because all the plans and schemes he's put together, even as he plows, he realizes, this crop may fail next year. Don't have any reason to hope. My house may be destroyed, just like yours. Because there is one more powerful than me who has more say in my life. In Proverbs 16:9, the wise teacher says, a man's heart devises his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. I like the way the Message Bible puts it. He says, we plan the way we want to live, but only God makes us able to live it. We've all got our plans, don't we? You probably got plans this week, plans to do things. Sometimes those plans fall right into place, don't they? Sometimes those plans get disrupted. That's why we have a thing called calling up the doctor and canceling, right? That's why we're able to cancel reservations, because things change. We make plans, but things change based on circumstances, based on things that happen in our lives. We may plot and plan, but it's God who ultimately determines our direction. We follow our hearts with our plans, but God controls our ultimate destiny. None of us are going anywhere unless God ordains it.
Amen.
Unless He prepares us and He prepares the way, we just can't get there. Some things we're just born, you know. I hear people all the time say, oh, if I could just be tall. Or, oh, if I just weren't so tall. Oh, if I just could gain weight. I know most of us don't have that issue. Or other people, if I could just lose a few pounds. But you know, some of those things we're just stuck with. We're stuck with our metabolism and our makeup. Even Jesus encountered that when He said to the disciples, which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit to your height? Fellas, don't worry about how tall or short you are. God made you that way. He made you that way for a purpose. And there's a reason behind it. We may not always understand it. We always have an attempt to map a course according to our God-given abilities, our desires, and opportunities. Now, God made you just like you are. And no two of us in this place are exactly alike. We're all different. Now, we may have some similarities. We may be close. But none of us are alike physically. None of us are alike emotionally. We react differently, don't we? Some of us, you could take a shovel and hit some of us in the head and we just go on our way and it wouldn't bother us in the least. Others you can sneeze at and they'll have an emotional breakdown. You know, it's amazing as I've pastored over the years to watch people and how you interact with people. And, you know, it's interesting because some folks never get their feelings hurt in church. Some folks never get over getting their feelings hurt in church. You know, and we have to get to that place where we understand everybody reacts differently to things.
Right.
And you treat different people, even in your family. You know, growing up, my children, Kristen and Kyle, react differently to us. When they were little children, I could look at Kristen like Daddy's going to get you, and she would break into tears and run and fix whatever she could. I could beat Kyle with a stick, and he'd turn around and walk the same direction he was going. I'm telling you, we're all different. We have different ways, and we, you know, how we got our children to do things, we had to do in a different way. Y'all know what I'm talking about now, don't you? Yeah, there were some things I could get done easily with my kids, but if I tried to get Kristen to do it some way, it just wouldn't work. And with Kyle the same way. Had to do things differently with them because their plans sometimes were not the best of plans, but to get them on track with what I felt like was the best plan, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't always perfect either. Sometimes my plans weren't the best for them. Sometimes I had to let them go through some of the things that I wish they didn't have to go through, but I knew if I didn't let them grow up and take responsibility, one day I'd pay for it. Mm-hmm. And they would pay for it. And I knew it was better to go ahead and let them find out early. You know, just like my daddy had to let me find out a lot of things. I thought I knew a whole lot more than my daddy and my mama, but I came to realize they knew a whole lot more than I did. Mm-hmm. Even though it took me a long time to realize that. We may seek to do God's will in our lives or simply live our lives to satisfy our personal desires, or we may waste what God has given us to find meaning and purpose in our lives. But without a doubt, God has fashioned every one of us the way He's fashioned us so that we can find and fulfill our ultimate purpose, what it is we're put on earth to do. And we're to align our efforts and plans with His ultimate purpose. Only then can we truly live out His purpose for us and have that full and abundant life that He's prepared for us. Listen, I just don't want to get by. You ever ask, how you doing? Oh, I'm getting by. I do not want to just get by in life. Do you? I want to do the extra. When I was working at Winn-Dixie as a 16-year-old boy, I remember often our manager would come around to us, and I've always been pretty industrious on the job because I like the big paycheck. So I'd make sure that if he ever, because one of the things he'd always do on weekends, because we weren't open on Sundays, but then we started open on Saturdays and Sundays. Or we were open on Saturdays but not on Sundays, then we started open 7 days a week. And so he'd come to us and he'd say, any of you folks, he'd always ask us, any of y'all want to do some weekend work? All the full-timers. And a lot of full-timers say, I don't work on weekends. I work 5 days a week and it's over. And I would generally say, because I needed the money, or I wanted the money, I'll work 6 days, I'll even work Sunday. If you'll let me go to church, I'll come in as soon as church is over. But we didn't open up till 10 o'clock on Sundays. And usually he would let me. But I was willing to work and do those things. Those other guys didn't want to. See, they didn't make those plans, but come payday, I'd get my check and I'd have a little more money than they would. And, you know, back then we'd compare checks and stuff. They'd show me what they made. How come you made more money than me? Well, I worked 10 hours Saturday while you were over at the lake. Well, that ain't fair. I said, well, all you gotta do is go work and let me go to the lake one Saturday and you'll make more money than me.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't take a genius to figure stuff like that out, does it? But sometimes I wonder about the folks who don't figure that out. You know? We've got a lot of folks who want to make the extra paycheck. You know, they want overtime for working less time.
There you go.
That's kind of the situation, unfortunately, we live in today. But we all have those plans. But we want to do. I want to live fully. In other words, when God comes to hand out the paychecks, I don't want Him to say, "Well, here's your getting by check." I want Him to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You took the extra mile.
Amen.
You're going to be rewarded for it." If I were to ask you, how did you get where you are today? And I were to go around this room and ask you to tell me, how did you decide upon your vocation? How did you determine this would be your marriage and your family? The place where you live, the church you attend, the people with whom you socialize, the habits you've developed, the activities you regularly participate in, I'm sure I'd get a myriad of different testimonials. When I was associate pastor at First Baptist Church in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, we had a senior adult group that we used to carry on trips, and we very often go over to the senior adult center where we had lots of members who lived. It was a high rise right by the church, and I'd drive the bus for them typically, and we'd go on trips to New Orleans or Gulfport or Biloxi and do day trips a lot of times. And there was one lady at the senior center one day. I was over visiting there and sitting there, and this little retired nun comes down. She's still got her habit and everything on, her ecclesiastical clothing, and so she comes down and sits by me. She says, "Are you that boy?" Because I was a boy then. She said, "Are you that boy that drives the bus for the Baptist church?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She said, "Well, my name's Mary, and I'm wondering if you would let me go on the trips with you." And I said, "Well, Sister Mary, I used to call her Sister Mary the Baptist nun. But she would always ride. She was probably close to 80 years old. She lived in her late 70s, I know. But she would ride with us all the time. And so one day we were sitting there on the Mississippi River. Some of the folks had gone to the renovated Jack's Brewery, if you know where that is. Now it's been renovated. It's a big shopping area. And Sister Mary was tired, so she sat down on the bench, and I just went and sat down and talked to her. And I wanted to talk to her for a while anyway. I said, "Sister Mary, would you tell me how it is you became a Catholic nun?" And I thought I was going to get some elaborate testimonial about how God had lightning rain down in front of her house one day, and she knew that this was her destiny. You know what she said to me? "I've just always known this is a thing for me to do." And she said, "That's just always been God's plan." And I thought for a minute, well, that sounds way too simple. Isn't there supposed to be something that's dramatic and earth-shattering to make you live a life of consecration before God? She said, "No, I just know this has always been God's plan for me." And that has stuck with me to this day. Because very, very often we make God's simple plan so hard. You know? There are a lot of things I need to pray about, deep things. There's some things I don't have to pray about. I already know. God's already shown me and told me. I don't need to ask God, "Is it okay if I go out and get drunk this Saturday night?" I don't need to ask God, "Is it okay if I go beat that neighbor I've got to death next door because he's a sorry dog and he deserves it?" I don't have to ask God that. I don't have to pray for weeks to determine His will and direction. Sometimes we take the simplest things and make them difficult. But if I were to ask you that question, how did you get to where you were today? These might be questions if I were to ask, how did you choose the particular vocation you got? Here's some possible answers I think I might get. "Oh, I love to work with my hands." People have told me that. The reason I do what I do is I just love to work with my hands. Or I enjoy working with people. I couldn't be at a job where I didn't work with people. Or I have the ability to create and design. God gave me this ability to create and design things, and that's what I do. I have always wanted to be able to paint, and I can't draw a stick figure straight. But I've always wanted to, and I am amazed when I sit down. Dr. Paul Altman was our pastor in Ocean Springs. I remember Dr. Altman about once every quarter would do a chalk talk. And he would do those beautiful drawings. And I think, man, God, why can't I do that kind of stuff? You gave me that, I'd probably just draw a line on the thing and say, God bless you, have a nice trip home. Because I couldn't do any of that. But he'd do these elaborate, beautiful chalk drawings that just mesmerized me. He said, you know, God gave me the ability to create and design that. Some people say, I love numbers. I love math. Listen, if you told me I had to do a job that had numbers and math involved, if you told me I had to be an accountant for 30 years, I would shoot myself, I'm pretty sure. I just couldn't do it. It's just not my thing. Maybe you love that, that's okay. You may be an accountant. I say, God bless you, I'm glad he put you people on earth, because we would have destroyed it by then. So some people say, I'm happy being outdoors, you know. I have never had a desire to work for Georgia Power and climb those power poles, especially not in rain and thunder and lightning and that kind of stuff. I see those guys out there and I think, God bless you for being out there. Some people say, you know, I like doing the same thing over and over. That would kill me in about 3 weeks if I made it that long. They just like doing the same thing over and over until I've perfected something. So we've all got different, everybody here, I guarantee you would tell me a little bit different nuance to why you chose the vocation you chose. But for most of us, if we were honest, we'd say, you know, God just prepared me for that. God put me in that place. God allowed me to be there. God gave me the opportunity to do that. If I were to ask you about your marriage partner, how did you choose the person you married? You might say, oh, we met on a blind date. Any of you in here meet on a blind date? For your marriage partner? Look at that. You had to be blind to marry Dwayne. No, I'm just joking. Don't you tell Dwayne, I just had a little fun with it. Blind date right there. There you go. See, you did better than she did. No, don't tell Dwayne. So you might have met on a blind date. I don't know. You might have found him or her on eHarmony or a website. Anybody confess to that? Look at that. We got some folks that do that. You might say, oh, I dated his brother or his sister or his friend, or her sister or brother, friend. Any of you have that situation? Good. Don't have any of those. We might say, well, we met at church. You know, you got married and met at church first time? Shame on you. Or you might say, well, we were high school sweethearts. Got any of those? Looky here. High school sweethearts. Maybe elementary school sweethearts, I don't know. But for a long time, you've been together. Any arranged marriages? You know, some people get married because it's arranged. We don't do that a whole lot in the United States, thank goodness. Some of them need to be rearranged, I think. You might say, well, I got married because I had to get married. Please don't raise your hands. You might say, well, we got married because it was love at first sight. Anybody here? Love at first sight? Look at that. Love at first sight. Some of you should have taken a second glance. Any of you say, well, I married them in spite of the fact the first time I met them, I couldn't stand them. I didn't like them. Anybody confess to that or admit to that? I'm scared to, aren't you? All right. So there's a lot of reasons why you married the person you married. And aren't you glad there were some others that you could have married that you chose not to and that God led you away from? Yeah, sometimes we thank God for unanswered prayers, don't we? Where you live. You live in Georgia, in Bartow County, most of you. Some of you may be in another county or adjoining county, but most of you live in the Bartow County, at least in the Bartow County area, northwest Georgia for sure. And you might say, well, I like the weather here. I talk to so many people during the week that I drive for and do other things for that, you know, they say, well, how'd you get down here from New Hampshire? What brought you down here from Illinois or Kansas? We like the weather. I hear that all the time. We love the weather here. And my next door neighbors across the street moved here from Daytona Beach. I said, why'd you move here? They said, we like the weather here. I said, you got the weather in Daytona Beach? Yeah, it's always hot and always humid, and we never have Christmas, what we consider Christmas. So we like having the different seasons, so they like the weather here too. A job location. Sometimes we move because our job moves us there. It's where job opportunities are. Some people live to be near family. It's a good reason. Maybe it's because you grew up here. Maybe you live where you do because it's out in the country. Maybe you live where you do because it's near in the city, closer to conveniences. Maybe it's because you're away from people. Or maybe it's because you love being close to people and you have good neighbors. But how we got here today, in every area of our lives, especially the major areas, has one thing in common. We planned and schemed to get here. We developed a plan and we decided what are the activities and things I have to do to get me here. But I can assure you, wherever you are, in all your circumstances, you're there for one reason, because God has placed you there. And you may have a hard time understanding that or believing it. And that's not to say we don't have any decision making in that. But we are nowhere where God hasn't allowed us to be. And we're nowhere and will never be where God prevents us from being. That is His sovereignty. That is His choice. We have choice within that matter, yes. When Robert Burns turned over that little mouse's nest, that mouse had some choices, didn't he? What was the choice he made? Get out of here as fast as I can get out, because that big thing right there may just kill me any minute. And so he ran. He could have stayed and taken that man on and knocked the plow out of the way and drug that man down to his size and started to beat up on him. I wouldn't like his odds. But he could have chosen to stay and fight. You know, when God gives us direction and gives us purpose and gives us meaning, He says, this is the way I want you to go, we don't have to do what God tells us to do we? We can resist. We can fight. We can turn and run from His direction. That doesn't mean He won't look at us and say, where are you going? What are you doing? Don't you realize I've got the best avenue chosen for you? Think about your life plans. Think about where you are today. Think about where you wanted to be when you started out. Most of us want to be good enough in life to make a good living and have a fine family, to develop our skills, to know that when we get to the place I am, you know that I have accomplished some things. But have we always gone where we figured on going? Some of you may remember this because you were here in 1989. I came to the church to be your pastor. And my plan was to stay here about 3 years and go in the military. Most of you know I was already getting my paperwork processed when I came here to go in the military. And my plan was to be a chaplain in the United States Army, a full-time chaplain. It's something I desired since the time I was in seminary. But in order to be a full-time chaplain, you had to have a seminary degree and at least, count them, 3 years of pastoral experience. So that was my plan. Well, about 2 years into my plan, guess what happened? I met a little blonde-haired girl from Bartow County who, if you take her out of Bartow County more than 5 minutes, she starts breaking out and having seizures. And about a year into our marriage, we discovered we were going to have a little child. And right after I found out that we were going to have our first child, guess who called? Uncle Sam. We're ready to access you full time in the military. All we need is your signature, and you can have, in 3 months you'll be deployed. Decision time. Mm-hmm. My plans, if I just followed my plans, I'd be retired probably from the Army now if I could have stuck it out. That wasn't God's plan. God's plan was for me to stay right where He planned me. And I called back a week later and told Brent Carlson, who was the chaplain advocate down at Fort McPherson, Chaplain, I'm not going to go full time. I'm going to stay in my reserve position. He said, that's fine, Chaplain, just need to know that. I'm going to check it off and move on to the next name on the list. I said, that'll be a good thing to do. My plans changed because God had a different plan. He knew what was best for me and my circumstances. And I look back on that, do I have any regrets about that? Not one regret. I did what God chose for me to do, and I'm so glad that I followed His plan because it's made a great little difference in my life. Are you satisfied with your choices? Are you disappointed in your decisions? Or are you grateful where God has led you? Or is there something that God has for you to accomplish from where you are today? It is so easy to look back at my life and see God's hand at work. What's difficult is for me to look in the future and see where God's hand will be working. Why? Because I don't know all the circumstances. You don't know all the circumstances. We don't know when we're going to go to that doctor's office. He's going to tell us words we don't want to hear. We don't know when we're going to tragically lose a family member or a loved one that's dear to us. We don't know when our job situation may be that they walk in and say, hey, we're closing the company in 2 weeks. You're going to get a week's severance pay and you're out of here. And so is your 401k. And that could be devastating to a lot of us, couldn't it? We don't know about those things. We don't know what God has planned, but we know what Romans 8:28 says. It says, we know that in all things God works for good to those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. If you've been saved, let me tell you something, you've been called according to His purpose. That purpose may be to preach, it may be to play beautiful music, it may be to teach Sunday school, it may be to be an evangelist in your community. It may be that you're to minister to certain people in certain places. But whatever that is, God still has a plan for us. Wherever we are in life. Our question is, are we going to follow His plan or are we going to do what our plans are? Most people I talk to retire, what do you plan to do? I'm going to fish. Fish every day. If I fished every day, I'd feel like a fish by a month's end. Golf, I'm going to play golf. I'm going to sit at home and sew. I'm going to sit in the rocking chair and watch Gunsmoke 24 hours a day. God help you. I stayed at home for about 2 weeks after I first retired from education. And, I thought this is going to be grand. The checks come every week whether I work or not. I got about 2 days full of daytime TV and I said, please God, either find me something to do or just take me on home right now. Because I don't think I can dwell in this land of Canaan here. If you want to see a good story about, and we don't have time to read this because most of you know it already, but if you want to turn to Genesis chapter 25, 20 through 28, you can jot it down and look at it later. It's a beautiful picture of how God works all things together for those who love God and who are called according to His purpose. And if you want to read that while I'm talking, that's fine, if you can multitask. But Isaac and Rebekah, now Isaac's 40 years old, and Rebekah, his wife, has been barren all this time. They've not had children. But God comes to them and tells them, look, you're not just going to have a child, you're going to have twins. And those twins are going to be born within seconds of each other. As a matter of fact, what's going to happen is the younger one's going to come out, and that younger one is going to have dominion for his lifetime over the older one. That was God's plan. He even told them beforehand, this is what I've got planned for your kids. And so they've got a plan in front of them. Guess what? Once they got the plan, they started to what? Scheme. Because if you read that portion of Scripture, it says that Isaac loved Esau, and Rebekah loved Jacob. They were different. Esau was a cunning hunter, man of the field. Jacob, he liked to hang around in the tents, do domesticated stuff. Probably gave him a bow and arrow. He said, I don't want to do this thing. I'm going to go up here and plant the daylilies. Do that sort of thing. And Isaac, the Bible says in verse 28 there, loved Esau because he loved to eat the meat he brought in. But Rebekah loved Jacob. And the sad thing is, pretty much Isaac loved Esau to the exclusivity of Jacob. That's a tough word. But Isaac loved Esau and disregarded Jacob. Rebekah did just the opposite. She loved Jacob and disregarded Esau. Can you see problems in that family? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So they started to scheme, and through their schemes, their children learned to scheme like they did, and poor old Esau, he must have been as dumb as a brick. He just let Jacob take advantage of him. And I think God saw in Esau there wasn't that spiritual dimension that Jacob had. And so God said Jacob will be the one who will have dominion. Jacob will be the one where the seed of the Savior will be from. He's the one who will carry out the lineage and the promise to Abraham. But they schemed, didn't they? And guess what? Because they got ahead of God and decided to make God's plan their plan and put it into action the way they wanted to, they messed up a lot of things. Now things worked out in the end. Even Jacob and Esau, after Esau swore he would kill Jacob if he saw him again, and for 20 plus years Jacob went off. He had to pay a price too, working for his wife. Remember the 7 years, and then another 7 years to get his beloved. So here are these men, here are these parents who schemed, and they messed things up for a while, but guess what? God worked it all out in his plan, where Esau was blessed, Jacob was blessed, and he was the son of promise. Isn't that what God does with his time and his plans? Even when we mess it up, even when we say, God, you want me to do this, this must be how you want me to do it. And we get involved in doing God's planning for him, and our schemes sometimes get us into trouble, don't they?
Yep.
I can't tell you how many people who have told me throughout my tenure, who I grew up with, some of them, said the same thing I did. I believe God's called me in the ministry. And yet they didn't do the things they needed to do that God led them to do to prepare them to be where they needed to be. And guess what? Today some of them are destitute. Some of them have a broken faith. Some of them have broken families. Some of them struggle in life because they didn't follow God's plan. Oh, they knew God's plan for them, but they failed to carry it out. They failed to scheme their life around the things God wanted them to do. And today they pay the price. Personally, I began to accept God's plan at age 16, but he has been the one to direct my path to where I am today. I can look back now and see how God has orchestrated everything in my life. He's been there and put it together. Sometimes I've tripped into his plan, sometimes I've willingly done it, and sometimes I've had to make detours to get back to where he wants me to be. He's opened doors and arranged things in my life so that he can accomplish his will for me. That don't impress us enough that God has a plan for us individually. Every one of you has a plan for it in the way you live your life. If you had asked me as a 16-year-old if I would ever go to college, I didn't have any plans to go to college. I was going to work at Winn-Dixie, have a nice career at age 16. Then I worked there for 6 months out of high school and decided there's something better for me than bagging groceries. College, I'm a college material, definitely. But I never had any plans to go to college, that I'd major in education, that I'd join the military as a chaplain, that I'd serve as pastor of 4 Baptist churches, that I'd marry a Georgia girl, teach high school English, become a school administrator, be the father of 2 wonderful children, live in a beautiful neighborhood in Taylorsville, drive a van transporting patients to medical facilities, experience some of the many great blessings that God has blessed me with, and the honors that he's bestowed upon me and my family. I would have been thrilled. At the same time, if you had told me as a 16-year-old of the many trials and obstacles that I would face as he prepared me on my journey to where I am today, life's disappointments, life's difficulties, life's discouragements, I might just say, stop this merry-go-round and let me off right now. And we all can say that. Sometimes I've taken the wrong fork in the road. Sometimes I've had to backtrack my steps to get where I need to be. But I'm assured, without a doubt, at this point in my life, I have come to the place where I can honestly say, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all my heart. Lean not to my own understanding. In all my ways acknowledge him. He will direct my paths. Amen. I've learned that. I'm still learning it, but I'm learning it deeper. The Message puts it this way. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do, everywhere you go. He will keep you on track.
Amen.
I have never in my life messed up because I listened to God and did what he said. I've always been successful when I've heeded his voice and go where he's led me to go. But when I fail to hear his voice, or when I say to him, God, I know that's probably what you want from me, but I think I've got a better idea. That's when I stumble. That's when I fall. I don't know how long the Lord plans on using me or even in what capacities, but I am saying this. Here I am, Lord. Send me.
Amen.
I hope that's your plan today. I hope whatever God's calling you to do, that you will allow him to direct you as you make your plans to serve him. 2 thoughts before we close. Chuck Swindoll said it this way, when we cannot fathom why, he knows. When we cannot give reasons, he understands. When we cannot see the end, he is there. Our Lord operates from an eternal agenda, not a daily planner. And Max Lucado in his book, And the Angels Were Silent, There's a dialogue between actor Charlton Heston, who played the lead role in that motion picture Ben-Hur, and director Cecil B. DeMille. Heston said to DeMille one day, "I think I can drive that chariot, but I'm not sure I can win the race." DeMille responded and replied saying, "You just stay in the race. I'll make sure you win." So that's what God tells us. God, I know I can try this, but I can't ensure you I'll be successful. God says, you do what I tell you to do, I'll make you successful. You don't worry about that. The results are mine. You just do, stay on track with where I put you. You be faithful in what I've taught you to do, and I'll give you the blessing. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you today for knowing that we're not out here in the world just haplessly floating by, but there is a great planner who has a plan for us and a destination for us. At whatever stage and age we are in our lives, you are already mapping out for us a wonderful journey, holding your hand and trusting in you. God, forgive us for the times when we begin to waver or think we have a better scheme. God, forgive us when we try to move ahead of you or behind you, and help us to stop and hear your voice and be obedient to you. In Jesus' name. We're going to sing a hymn of invitation. I'll be here at the front. If God speaks to you, maybe there's a need in your life today. Maybe you've never been saved. Let me tell you, the first part of God's plan for every one of us is that we acknowledge Him and profess our faith in Him and give our life to Him. If you've never done that, today's the day you can do it. Maybe that you've gotten sidetracked. Maybe God's asking you to do something, or you've walked away from His plan. Whatever He leads you to do, as we sing this hymn of invitation, I'll be here at the front. You come as He leads. Let's stand together for this. She had her plans. Yeah. And it coincided with the doctor, but she had her plans. All right. And you know what? There's a lot of us that's just like that. God says, and we say, Lord, I don't think I'm quite ready for that yet. Lord, I don't think you're ready for that. All right, let's bow. I'm sorry.
I thought that went in when you were serving.
Absolutely. Perfect. Oh, we should tell them before the sermon. I can stuck it in there. But thanks for sharing it. Let's bow for our time of benediction. Brother West, and hand would you lead us, please?
Father, we thank you for the word of the first name, Lord. Pray, Lord, that these might have us about every night, Lord. Ask you, Lord, to give us commitment to do with this church. Give us some guys in the word we should know. Father, we ask you to do this not here today. We pray that you do one. Bring it back to us, Lord. Father, we ask you to be with us to see it. Give them such a
Amen.
I just reach out and touch you, Father, and love you, Father. I just want to be here for the next hour, Father, totally dependent on you, totally worshiping you, Father. Father, we just ask right now that as Keith brings the message, Father, that you would give him those words that our hearts are ready to hear, Father, and open up our hearts to receive them. We just love you and praise you this morning, Father. In your name we pray. Amen. Good morning.
Good morning.
A few announcements this morning. We are not having choir practice tonight for anybody that might want to come and join us anytime you're ready. But we are going to start having choir practice on Wednesday nights at 6:30. Just kind of something we were discussing back there, and it seems to work better for us. So we're going to start doing that 6:30 on Wednesday nights. So no choir practice tonight, 6:30 on Wednesday. Vacation Bible School starts July. I'll make another announcement in a minute, but next Sunday, I'd like to have just a short 10-minute meeting with all those who will be working on Vacation Bible School, because it's really fast approaching. I think we're only 2 Sundays away, Vacation Bible School, so we really need to be able to just sit in for just a few minutes and get everything in order. That's from July 7th through the 10th. Homecoming starts, will be on July 21st, and then revival on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Excited to have Keith speaking, and we're excited that he's here today. We miss Amy, but she had some other things that needed to get done, so she couldn't make it this morning, but we're happy Keith is here again this morning. Those messages the last few Sundays have just been awesome. Gary and I have talked about them, and definitely something our hearts needed to hear. We appreciate it, Keith. Again, our revival is going to be Monday through Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday, David Glenn will be here. Said before, he toured with Third Day. They're all off tour now. He's doing some church singings. I think he's in Douglasville this coming Friday. So if you want to have a chance to hear him, you can look him up on his website and see where he's going to be. But I think he's going to be, I think it's Douglasville this Friday. After church this morning, Daryl has asked that the pulpit committee meet with him for a very short time in the fellowship hall.
No, counting office.
Do what?
Counting office.
In that office. So not that way. Go that way. Pulpit committee. I'll put a little sign up here. Pulpit committee that way. So right after church, he promises it won't be but just a few minutes. So we know Daryl. Sorry. So are there any other announcements we need to make this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yep. Today is James' birthday.
Happy birthday, Jane.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear James. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, I'm 104.
What?
I said thank you, I'm 104.
You're 104? Well, I heard you were 39, isn't that what it says? 49, I'm sorry.
104 is the way I feel.
Devon's is tomorrow, so
There.
y'all gotta get this straight. I don't know this stuff. Derek, you got a birthday tomorrow? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Derek. Happy birthday to you. And for everybody else who's got a birthday. So I'm glad we don't have 1,000 members here. We can sing that all day, right? So we hope y'all have a great day. So enjoy your birthday. So they only come once a year, you know that? So just okay, so moving right on. Any other announcements? All right, we're gonna go ahead and go into our prayer request. We want to lift Cheryl up. I could go into a lot of detail about what was said in Sunday school about Cheryl, but we need to pray for her. She can't drive right now, so she can't come to church. And I don't know about you guys, but when I miss church, I can't get through the week. So we really just need to lift up Cheryl. If you need to know what's going on, you can talk to Gladys. She'll be happy to fill you in, but she really needs our prayer. So not to be able to come to church maybe for a few weeks, maybe even a few months is going to be tough. So we're going to pray for her. Linnell Wood, we need to pray for her. Jerry Bishop and his family, we need to pray for them. Who else? Covered everybody. Darryl, will you lead us in prayer this morning?
Lord, as we come to you this morning, we just ask that you lift up the ones that we have mentioned on our prayer list, Lord. The ones that we have mentioned, those and their families, Lord, as you know their needs. Their even individual needs, Lord. Where it and you know what they need, Lord, and we just ask you to be especially with them, the way you're healing hand upon them, Lord, and help the families. Lord, we do want to ask a special prayer for Jerry's family, Lord, as they are still seeking it from your will, Lord, to hear from you something, the exact whereabouts, Lord. We just ask this morning, Lord, that you a special prayer for that, Lord, for that family. It's something come alive, Lord, for them, that they'll get some kind of answer to it, and some sort of relief for that, Lord. As we go through our daily life, Lord, we just ask that you be with us and lead us and guide us, continue to bless us, Lord. We ask that you just bless us, keep us in our your message, that it be love and light and draw our hearts, Lord.
Let's all stand and sing this morning. Take time to be holy, speak open thy Lord. Nobody can always and freedom is word. Make friends of our children, help those who are weak. Forgetting in nothing His blessings to see. Take time to be holy, let Him be thy guide, and run not before Him, whatever betide. Endure in sorrow, still follow thy Lord, and looking to Jesus, still trust in His word. Take time to be holy, be calm in thy soul. Each thought and each morning, be in His control. Thus led by His Spirit to fountains of love. Thus shall be fitted for service above. We're going to continue right along with our offertory song. In my heart there rings a melody. Smile just a little bit while we're singing if there's a melody in your heart this morning, okay? I have a song that Jesus gave me. It was sent from heaven above. There never was a sweeter melody. 'Tis the melody of love.